In the rolling green hills of Willow Creek, where time seems to move slower than the clouds above, everyone knew to absolute truth. The soil was rich enough to grow anything, and Elara, the baker's daughter, was hopelessly in love with Silas Thorne. Elara was the heartbeat of the village. With her flour-dusted apron and a smile that could outshine the midday sun, she was warmth personified. Silas, on the other hand, was winter. He had inherited the crumbling, ivy-covered manor on the edge of the woods just 6 months ago. He was undeniably handsome, tall, with shoulders broad by hard labor and eyes the color of a stormy sea. But he was a fortress with no gates. He was a man of few words, and none of them were kind. Every morning when Silas walked into the village to buy supplies, Elara would rush to the bakery counter, her heart pounding against her ribs. "Good morning, Silas," she would chirp, offering him a fresh, warm cinnamon roll. "It's on the house today." Silas would look at the pastry with suspicion, leave a coin on the counter anyway, and mutter, "I don't need your charity, girl, just the flour." He found her annoying. To him, Elara was too loud, too bright, and too naive. He was a man run from a dark, noisy past in the city, seeking absolute silence, and she was a constant melody he couldn't tune out. The turning point arrived on a slate gray Tuesday afternoon. The sky opened up, unleashing a torrential downpour that turned the dirt roads into rivers of mud. Elara looked out the bakery window and saw Silas struggling to fix a broken wheels on his wagon. He was soaked to the bone, wrestling with the heavy wood. Without thinking, she grabbed an umbrella and ran out into the storms. "Let me hold this for you," she offered, breathless, holding the canopy over his head. Silas, frustrated, exhausted, and battling his own demons, finally snapped. He stood up, towering over her, weeping mouth and rain from his face. "Go home, Elara," he roared. "Do you have no pride? Stop following me. Stop smiling at me like nothing is wrong. I'm not interested in your village games or your pity. Leave me alone." The harshness of his voice cut deeper than the cold wind. Elara's smile, usually so resilient, shattered instantly. She lowered the umbrella, leaving him in the rain. She nodded once, a small, heartbreaking moment, and turned away. She didn't cry in front of him, but her silence was louder than any sob. That was the day the dynamics shifted. For the next months, Willow Creek looked the same, but it felt entirely different. Elara still worked at the bakery, but the light had dimmed behind her eyes. When Silas entered for his supplies, she didn't rush to the counter. She stayed in the back, kneading dough with mechanical precision, letting her father serve him. If they passed on the dirt path, she would offer a polite, distant nod, the kind you give a stranger, and keep walking. At first, Silas felt relieved. Finally, he had his peace. The annoying chatter was gone. But as the weeks turned into autumns, the silence began to feel heavy, almost suffocating. He started noticing things he had willfully ignored before. He noticed that without her greeting, the bakery felt cold and sterile. He noticed that when he saw her laughing with the blacksmith's son across the market square, a strange, hot knot of jealousy tightened in his chest. He missed the cinnamon rolls, but more than that, he missed the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled at him. He realized with a jolt of panic that her warmth hadn't been a nuisance. It had been the only thing thawing his frozen heart. One evening, a fierce autumn storm struck the countryside. The wind howled like a wounded animal, tearing branches from ancient oaks. Silas sat in his manor, staring into the dying embers of his fireplace. But his mind was in the village. He remembered Elara mentioning days ago that her father's roof had a bad leak. Driven by an instinct he couldn't name, Silas grabbed his heavy coat and tools, saddling his horse in the driving rain. He rode hard through the mud to the bakery. Sure enough, he found Elara outside in the dangerous gale, struggling to top the roof while her elder brother held the ladder. Looked terrified. She was sleeping on the wet shingles, shivering violently. "Get down!" Silas roared over the wind, startling her. Before she could argue, Silas was up the ladder. He took the hammer from her frozen, trembling hands. "Go inside, I'll finish this." "I don't need your help," she shouted back, her voice shaking, echoing his own cruel words from months ago. "I have pride, remember?" Silas looked at her, shocked and shivering, his heart hammering against his ribs. "I know," he said, his voice dropping to a desperate plea. "I was a fool. Please, Elara, let me do this for you." She hesitated, looking into his eyes, and finally climbed down. Silas worked for an hour, fighting the wind until the roof was secure. When he finally entered the warm, yeast-stained kitchen dripping wet, Elara was waiting with a dry towel and a mug of hot tea. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn away. "Why did you come, Silas?" she asked quietly. Silas took the tea, his hand trembling slightly, not from the cold, but from the fear of losing her forever. He looked at the girl he had pushed away and realized he didn't want peace anymore. He wanted her chaos, her lights, and her noise. "Because," Silas said, his voice raw with emotion, "the village is too quiet without you. And I realize I don't want to be alone anymore." Elara looked at him, searching his face for the truth. For the first time in months, the ghost of a smile touched off her lips. "I thought you just missed the cinnamon rolls." "No," he admitted, stepping closer, his eyes soft and vulnerable. "It was never about the rolls. It was about the girl who gave them to me. I'm sorry, Elara." The rain battered the windows, but inside, the cold distance between them finally melted. The table has turned, but this time neither of them was running away.